And thank you so much for choosing to join UBC TV. Now, the budget has been raised again to 72 trillion Uganda shillings as the Finance Ministry has decided to allocate 1 extra trillion to unfunded priorities as identified by the MPs. Now, this was stated by the State Minister for Finance, that is Honorable Henry Musasizi, who said that the additional funding was to be allocated to service delivery. And if approved, the additional funds will push the total budget from 71.7 trillion to 72.7 trillion. My name is Julie Nantaba Mosesi, and I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono to take you through this early morning as you kickstart your day. Once again, good morning, Uganda, and thank you so much for joining UBC TV. Good morning, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, Julie, and of course our viewer. Thank you very much for waking up with us. But I just want to remind you, please get yourself a cup of coffee made in Uganda. Don't go for these that we import. Let's take the coffee that is grown and value added here in Uganda so that we promote Uganda. And in case of anything, where maybe our borders are closed, domestic consumption will sustain this great crop that is doing us very good as Ugandans.
Buy Uganda, build Uganda.
Buy Uganda, build Uganda. Well, so much is happening.
Right.
There's so much news happening, but I want to quickly move to Parliament, where Uganda Post Defence Forces Amendment Bill 2025 is being scrutinized by members of Parliament on the committee that looks at that. Was very interesting yesterday. Now, at this time, at the committee level, there are amendments that happen or changes, if there are, seen the light of day. But yesterday I found certain things very interesting. And I just want to quote one member of Parliament, that is Honorable Abdu Katuntu. Now, in the Act, there are shoes that are put as a preserve of the UPDF. And if they are found with you, in case it sees the light of day, as that not changed, UPDF, they have what they call ceremonial shoes. These are black shoes, very like the ones I usually wear, the black gentleman clerks or some, that kind of shoe. Now, this, they also leave alone the boots. I don't know if you've seen UPDFs, most of the seniors, when they have a ceremony, when they put on that kind of ceremonial suit and the shoes they put on black, sometimes some have a bit of shiny. So those shoes, Honorable Abdu Katuntu said, we cannot take them on and you can't gazette them as only for UPDF. Because even when we look around, actually he mentioned that one of the ministers in the room had similar shoes. So would we take that person found in preserve of items that belong to UPDF? The other thing he talked about was the pistol. He said, no, we must look critically. We know what we call arms belonging to UPDF and a preserve of UPDF. There he asked, Elelu to give, he said he wasn't an expert, but to give more information on what, and he actually used the word, those heavy artilleries like you used somewhere, we all know. He said, first and foremost, for example, pistols, we even have civilians that are licensed to carry these pistols, but also prisons, police, security guards. So it is interesting what is happening in the committee. My most attention it was where I found this interesting, because now they are trying to see things that can bring you trouble, away from crimes committed, but bring you trouble indirectly, like you're not very sure, or that there's a very thin line between what we have and what the UPDF has. Not to forget that many times you have people who don these and they have bought them in shops. And when they are coming in this country, they pay good tax and you buy them also expensively, but only to find an operation they are telling you that that trouser, that skirt belongs to the UPDF. And one will ask, I've never seen a UPDF soldier putting on a camouflage t-shirt, skirt. So this is what is happening. We wait to see what will happen at the end of the day. And of course, the Attorney General, Chiriowa Chiwanuka, was there to defend and saying, no, we are for the good cause and we have also, in this amendment, made all changes we believe that were causing problems in the original structure and setup of the court-martial. Now, we believe that with this bill, we are looking at those changes. But also the MPs were insisting that then why don't you empower the civilian courts to do that?
Very, very true indeed. And when you say empower, I'm reminded of a conversation that I was having with somebody regarding the UPDF, and they stated that amongst the community outreach activities that the UPDF usually has, one of them should be sensitizing and empowering civilians at that about what exactly the UPDF does, because you'll find that many Ugandans don't even understand the bare minimum of what the army that protects them really does. But matters the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 are now with two committees, and that is the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, as well as the Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs for scrutiny. And at the end of it all, a detailed report shall be presented for further discussion as we watch the proceedings and the progress of this particular bill. But for now, Robert, take us through on what is on the local scene.
Allow me to begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who was in the Rwenzururu region. Now, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni reiterated the need to embrace skills training and offering support to the science and technology sector, since in the nearby future, the above will dictate life. Museveni made the remarks while officiating the inauguration of Rwenzori Regional Presidential Industrial Hub in Kasese. President Museveni also launched the newly tarmacked road in Kasese municipality with a call to local leaders to prioritize wealth creation initiatives other than chasing over political and salary rewards. The commissioned roads were constructed at a tune of close to 50 billion shillings. Funds secured under the World Bank-led project of Uganda support to municipal infrastructure development. The three-day presidential wealth creation visit to Rwenzori sub-region ended with a public address by the head of state at Nyakasanga grounds in Kasese district. Addressing the region, President Museveni emphasized the need for the area to embrace wealth creation, support his idea of free education for all, and proper usage of land. Museveni will today take the wealth creation tour to Tororo sub-region, where he will spend 4 days. The Attorney General Kiryowa Kiwanuka defended the need to establish the court-martial, including the General Court. Kiwanuka told MPs scrutinizing the Uganda People's Defence Force Amendment Bill 2025 that the jurisdiction embedded in the court completes the sequence. The MPs further questioned why the civilian courts are not empowered to carry out the similar intentions of the establishing the court-martial. Members from the legal team of UPDF also appeared to present the bill. The National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, has announced that the nationwide mass registration and renewal of the national IDs will commence on May 27th this year. While speaking to the media, Rosemary Chisembo, the Executive Director of NIRA, added that the exercise is expected to last between 6 to 10 months, emphasizing the minimum participation. The mass registration and renewal exercise comes at a time critical as millions of Ugandans' IDs are approaching the expiry date. Each of Uganda's 10,595 parishes will be equipped with a minimum of 10 registration kits, making parishes the heart of the operations during the exercise. A special committee will be stationed at the district level to handle any citizenship-related disputes or queries that may arise during the process. Rosemary Kisembo, the Executive Director, National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, highlighted that the new national IDs will come with enhanced features, including a multi-laser image for increased security. However, while registration and renewal will be free of charge, any changes to personal particulars will incur a fee. NIRA is urging all Ugandans to participate and remind each other with the phrase, "You have a name, do you have a NIN?" And finally, from the local scene, Uganda is on the World Health Organization's list of 30 TB-burdened countries, with an estimated 94,000 people falling ill each year with tuberculosis. According to the Assistant Commissioner, National TB and Leprosy Program, Dr. Turiehawe Stefia, the country has made progress in TB detection over the past decades, but significant challenges remain in its effort to end tuberculosis by 2030. Receiving the equipment at the Ministry of Health headquarters, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Aceng, expressed gratitude to the American people for the donation, saying this is a great stride in eradicating the disease. Aceng is optimistic that this donation is to boost the ongoing health care integration programs. While handing over the equipment, the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency William Popes, said U.S. government will continue to support emergency health care services even with U.S. aid mission exiting Uganda. If just 48 of these machines are used constantly over 1 year, with 80% deployed in active case finding and 20% in passive case finding, Uganda will have the capacity to screen more than 500,000 people. Since 2000, Uganda and the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, the United States government has contributed to saving an estimated 74 million lives globally. The project endeavors have prioritized reaching undeserved and vulnerable populations who face the highest burden of disease and the greatest barrier to care. That brings us to the end of our local stories.
Right. Thank you very much, Robert. Now, looking at what is on the foreign scene, Russian President Vladimir Putin is not among the names listed by the Kremlin as being due to attend peace talks on the war in Ukraine in Istanbul on Thursday, that is today. Despite calls from Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky for him to attend, Russia's delegation will instead be headed by presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky, according to the Kremlin statement. Zelensky had previously said he would attend the talks and meet Putin in person if the Russian president agreed, and said he would do everything he could to ensure the face-to-face meeting took place. U.S. President Donald Trump will also not be attending, according to media reports, despite previously hinting he would if Putin were there. Zelensky will be in the Turkish capital Ankara on Thursday to meet President Erdogan, and he said he would attend direct talks in Istanbul with Russia, but only if Putin also attended. I am waiting to see who will come from Russia, and then I will decide which steps Ukraine should take. So far, the signals from them in the media are unconvincing, he said in his nightly video address on Wednesday. Now, focusing on Donald Trump, who is on a visit to the Middle East, the president was greeted with more pomp and ceremony as he arrived in Qatar on the second stop of his Middle East tour after departing Saudi Arabia on Wednesday. The White House said that Trump and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani signed agreements that would generate an economic exchange worth at least $1.2 trillion. The agreements are said to include a $96 billion deal with Qatar Airways to buy up to 210 Boeing 787 Dreamliner and a 777X aeroplanes, and a statement of intent for $38 billion in investment at Qatar's Al Udeid Airbus and other air defense capabilities. A meeting is scheduled for later today of U.S., Turkish, and Syrian officials to discuss details of Trump's announced dropping of sanctions against Syria. Trump's three-country tour of the Gulf state region will conclude in the United Arab Emirates today on Thursday. Now, coming back to Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has called a group of 59 white South Africans who have moved to the U.S. to resettle cowards, saying they'll be back soon. Sounds like a typical African. But the group of Afrikaners arrived in the U.S. on Monday after President Donald Trump granted them refugee status, saying they faced racial discrimination. But Ramaphosa said those who wanted to leave were not happy with efforts to address the iniquities of the apartheid past, terming their relocation as a sad moment for them. As South Africans, we are resilient. We don't run away from our problems. We must stay here and solve our problems. When you run away, you are a coward, and that's a real cowardly act, he added. Trump and his close ally, South Africa-born Elon Musk, have said there was a genocide of white farmers in South Africa, a claim that has been widely discredited. The U.S. has also accused the South African government of seizing land from white farmers without paying compensation. And more than 30 years after the end of decades of rule by South Africa's white minority, black farmers own only a small fraction of the country's best farmland, with the majority still in the white hands, leading to anger over the slow pace of change. Now let's have a look at what is in the dailies today. Robert.
Well, very interesting stories in the dailies this morning. We'll begin with the New Vision, where there is a picture of people who attended the President's rally on wealth creation and parish development model. He's been in that sub-region for 3 days. And Katanga murder trial case was first registered as suicide. Now, moving up, MPs Finance disagree on 95 billion budget. And of course, there are over 210 tenders for you. Police used WhatsApp messages, call logos to trail the ploy. RCC murder linked to Kampala hitmen. And let me quickly move to the Daily Monitor. Jamil Mukulu appeared in court after 5 years. And we have the new face of HIV activism. The Daily Monitor still talks about what is happening in Parliament at the committees, that is tug of war over bill to try civilians. And government bans publishing UNEB stars, yes. And still the Daily Monitor, we look at hackers now target VPN users. And the lizard, as usual, comes in. We know who will win eventually. What is he talking about? Tug of war, trying civilians in the army court. Well, something also here. Bodo SS beat Chitende to win. Why are you laughing? Schools champion. If we just let them win, we are used to these things anyway. Winning, Chitende winning all the time. So if they get a chance to do that, you will leave them. We know we shall take it again anyway.
Oh, wow. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan, but now you're speaking like one who hasn't admitted
loss. No, but with St. Mary's Chitende, my former school, we've always won these things. It's not news to us.
Wow, right. Very interesting. Now, moving on to what is in the rest of East Africa, looking at the Citizen, why Tanzania does not lead in selling its own Tanzanite. And India, despite not mining Tanzanite, is the leading exporter of the gem worldwide. Can you imagine that? Followed by Tanzania, the sole producer, in second place, and the third is Vietnam, taking the third place. Very interesting. Still in the Citizen, construction materials surplus fuels Tanzania to revive lagging sectors. And also visually impaired DJ breaks barriers in Tanzania's scene. The citizen still has Mwinyi, Hillary's passing, a reminder to cherish workers. And on the international scene in the citizen, peace, Trump urges Syria's Shara to join Abraham Accords. Now moving on to Kenya, Gachagua rattles opposition talks as opposition chiefs explore talks on a joint flag bearer to face off with President Ruto. In 2027, former Deputy Rigathi Gachagua has stirred up controversy by insisting ex-Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i should shun Jubilee and instead front his own party. Still in the Daily Nation, hidden pain in finance bill as resistance grows. And also there, when were they released? Mothers of missing youths now ask Ruto. But also MPs joining rising wave of opposition to leasing public sugar factories. All of that in the Daily Nation that you can get yourself a copy. And finally, end of field police recruitment as hiring now moves online. Well, you can get yourself a copy from all the dailies and get to read more of what is in them today. But for now, let's have a short break with a song from Lionel Richie. I Call It Love.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning to you, Julie, and of course our viewer. Thank you very much for waking up with us. But I just want to remind you, please get yourself a cup of coffee made in Uganda. Don't go for these that we import. Let's take the coffee that is grown and value added here in Uganda so that we promote Uganda. And in case of anything, where maybe our borders are closed, domestic consumption will sustain this great crop that is doing us very good as Ugandans.
Buy Uganda, build Uganda.
Buy Uganda, build Uganda. Well, so much is happening.
Right.
There's so much news happening, but I want to quickly move to Parliament, where Uganda Post Defense Forces Amendment Bill 2025 is being scrutinized by members of Parliament on the committee that looks at that. Was very interesting yesterday. Now, at this time, at the committee level, there are amendments that happen or changes, if there are, seen the light of day. But yesterday, I found certain things very interesting. And I just want to quote one member of Parliament, that is Honorable Abdu Katuntu. Now, in the Act, there are shoes that are put as a preserve of the UPDF. And if they are found with you, in case it sees the light of day, as that not changed. UPDF, they have what they call ceremonial shoes. These are black shoes. Very, like the ones I usually wear. The black gentleman clerks or that kind of shoe. Now, this, they also leave alone the boots. I don't know if you've seen UPDFs, most of the seniors, when they have a ceremony, when they put on that kind of ceremonial suit and the shoes they put on black, sometimes some have a bit of shiny. So those shoes, Honorable Abdu Katuntu said, we cannot take them on and you can't gazette them as only for UPDF. Because even when we look around, actually he mentioned that one of the ministers in the room had similar shoes. So would we take that person found in preserve of items that belong to UPDF? The other thing he talked about was the pistol. He said, no, we must look critically. We know what we call arms belonging to UPDF and a preserve of UPDF. There he asked, Elelu to give, he said he wasn't an expert, but to give more information on what, and he actually used the word, those heavy artilleries like you used somewhere, we all know. He said, first and foremost, for example, pistols, we even have civilians that are licensed to carry these pistols, but also prisons, police, security guards. So it is interesting what is happening in the committee. My most attention it was where I found this interesting, because now they are trying to see things that can bring you trouble, away from crimes committed, but bring you trouble indirectly, like you're not very sure, or that there's a very thin line between what we have and what the UPDF has. Not to forget that many times you have people who don these and they have bought them in shops. And when they are coming in this country, they pay good tax. And you buy them also.
Risks. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887, and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Good morning once again if you've been with us since the start, and good morning to you in case you are just joining us. Thank you so much for choosing to join us. Time for The Real, where we get to talk about a particular topic as we share our 2 cents, learn and relearn, but with you. So be a part of the conversation. 0709602592. That is the WhatsApp number to which you can share your opinion as we talk about today's topic. And today we are talking about the registration renewal of national IDs. Now, the National Identification and Registration Authority announced that it has officially launched the registration and renewal of national IDs, an exercise that will kick off on the 27th day of May 2025. Now, this particular exercise will go on for about 6 to 10 months and will take place in all districts of Uganda. That is a conversation that we have today. So once again, 0709602192. And I am not alone, just in case you've just joined us. I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono to dissect this matter and share our 2 cents on it. Now, with that being said, Robert, what exactly does it mean for this exercise, renewing and registering of national IDs?
Well, thank you so much. First and foremost, all Ugandans now know the power or why you should possess a national ID.
Right.
As a Ugandan. because you can't get a loan, you can't get a passport, a driving license. Within the East African community where you have travel documents and an ID.
Can't have a bank account.
You can't have a bank account. There is so much, actually. Everything now rotates around a national ID. So you want to go to why it is important. But of course, we know it's that document that properly identifies you as a Ugandan, and that the information in it can easily be used to trace you. Now, what is going to happen starting on the 27th of this very month and this very year, definitely, is that the National Registration, the National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, they are going to be embarking on registering, that is, new entrants, a person who has never gotten a national ID in your life. Because every Ugandan should have a national ID. So they are going to be registering from 0 to so many years in this mass registration exercise. That is one.
If I could just interject right there with registering new entrants, is there, are there criteria in regards to age? Because there are new entrants of those who have, who are younger, that is 0 to 18 years.
Yes.
Or maybe 19. But then there are also older citizens who ought to have got IDs at about the time they were released for the first time, maybe 2014, 2015, but they did not and have probably not owned national IDs and will be getting national IDs for the first time in this new campaign. Are there criteria?
Yes, they are. Now, for those that are 16 and above, you're going to register and then get your national ID. But remember, for every Ugandan, you must have a NIN as long as you're born and you're a Ugandan. A NIN is your national identification number. Now, when you get that NIN, when you clock the age of 16, is when your national ID is processed. So, these children, your children, each of them must have a NIN, a national identification number. Now, that has the details of that person. However, because they are not yet of the age
to own IDs.
To own, they don't have a national ID. Now, for you who is 16 and above, when you register, you get a national ID. So the NIN helps us to know that if I'm traveling outside with this child, they ask me for the NIN. Because remember, when they go in the system, it has all the details that are needed. And remember, these young ones, because they are growing, so much is changing on them and very frequently. The face a child today may resemble so as they grow. And because also, so these changes, yes, they'll have that, and at that later age, they'll have a national ID. But for us above that age, you register, you get a national ID. And there they are targeting about 17.2 million Ugandans. Now, there is also going to be conducting in the same time what we call renewal. Now, there is a batch of Ugandans who got their national IDs in 2014 and 2015. These IDs are soon to expire because a national ID, the space they gave it, the duration time is 10 years.
10 years, yes.
And if you're good at mathematics, that shows you when these are going to expire. And you can't have an expired document being presented. So you need to renew. Actually, we saw even when they expired, the Minister for Internal Affairs had to go to Parliament, then have a statutory instrument and extend the duration. So that is what is going to be happening. And if you got your national ID during the and it's expired, you're going to get a new national ID, and it is going to be free of charge. If you're registering for the first time, you're getting a new national ID, but it's going to be free of charge.
All right, and for which category of people are going to pay to get a national ID?
Now, how you're going to pay in case you want to change particulars on your national ID. You were Julie something, now you got married, and you want the husband's name to be part of your name. Or you were married, now you are a divorcee. You don't want to continue being called and seeing it on your document because, yes, some relationships end in a very hot method. So, or you want to change your age. There are people, maybe they have just discovered that this is not the right year I was born in. So they want to make those changes. There are people, yes, usually they change name and year, or date of birth and year. So if you want to make those changes there, you're going to go to the district and they will give you the procedure, because when you're changing a name, for example, we know there's a procedure you follow. When changing date of birth, there's a procedure you follow.
Right.
So for those, you must pay, and on their website, there are proper information of what you must pay. Don't be conned, the amounts of money you must pay to make those corrections. But in this exercise, change of place of stay is free of charge. For example, I could be born in Katale Busawula, and now I'm staying in Munyonyo. So, if they ask me where resident, don't, because I got my national ID in Katale Busawula, that is Wakiso district, say that. Say where you are, because when that ID is done, it will come back from where you said you stay, and it will go back to the other area. Yes.
Right, thank you so much, Robert, on that. 0709-602-592. That is the number, WhatsApp number to which you engage in on this conversation. And first and foremost, all right, allow me to read this. It's from somebody. You did not leave your name, but you appreciate the conversation that we had yesterday regarding mental health. Thank you so much for always being on the show. And Kagumba Morris, you say, good morning, Uganda. This is Morris Kagumba from Mayuge district. We appreciate NIRA, but why can't NIRA give people national IDs without expired dates? Just imagine your country where you expire as a citizen means they do not trust you as a Ugandan. Thank you for the show. Why do national IDs expire?
Well, that is a very good question. And I want to thank him because it's commonly asked.
Yes.
Now, a national ID is made from various materials.
Right.
There is paper or carbon, and it contains various features. This time it will have your iris also, it's going to be captured, and there are other security features that are on that small thing you see, the national ID. Now, the makers of this ID looked at a duration that this material can last. They looked at the duration that photo they took can last if you're carrying it. Remember, at one time you're going to move with it. At one time you know all that. So they knew that this paper, unlike, I don't have mine here, but they knew that that national ID, that material will wear out. So you will have to present it. And remember, a national ID is proof. Whenever they tell you, bring your national ID. So if you present that national ID, when the picture that was taken has now become faded, someone can't see properly, when the name can't be read properly, when there is so much that is not clear on your national ID. So because it is made out of materials of that nature and the security features embedded in it, they knew it that after a period of 10 years, this may no longer serve the purpose of identifying you clearly because it won't be visible, the features won't be visible. So the material will expire. Second, they knew that in a period of 10 years, you will have changed. You know,
right, yeah.
A picture that was taken of me 10 years ago, I had a puff. I used to have a lot of hair on me, small, tiny.
You surely had a puff.
Yes.
Okay.
So much was different. I wasn't the person I am today.
Right.
10 years down the road. Now, have you ever taken your national ID to someone or the bank and they look critical and what?
Are you the one?
But I don't think it is you. Because 10 years, there are changes that happen. So they also knew that after 10 years, so what expires is not your citizenship. What expires is the national ID. But that is why your name never changes. your national identification number as a citizen of Uganda. That is what we call the NIN.
Right.
Even if you lose the ID, even if many renewals are done, your NIN will never expire. So the national ID is expiring does not mean your citizenship has expired.
Right. Siraja says, good morning. Thank you for the program. It's a good one. But then again, government is slow on such exercises.
Well, we are told this exercise is going to last between 6 to 10 months. Now, 6 to 10 months is quite a big period of time. It's going to be done at district and parishes.
Yes.
And government of Uganda secured 5,665 biometric registration kits. Now, each of the parishes will be equipped with a minimum of 10 registration kits, making parishes the heart of the operation during the exercise. Now, just imagine these 10 kits are put in a parish. They will look at how many villages they have. So if today they are in this village, they are announced, they will give a specific time when they are there. So people come and they get registered, then they will shift. So they will be rotational until we are done. One thing I know, that sometimes it is not that government is slow. Sometimes it is how we respond to these things. Now, people are going to be aware that for Machindi Mubarak, just to use an example, or UBC village, the NIRA registration staff are here. They will be there by 8, they will leave at 5, maybe, and I want to tell you that they will end when they have registered 3 people. So the turn-up of people is very low. Now, as the exercise is coming to an end, we crowd the area and we are like, government is slow, these people are slow. But also not to forget, and I want to emphasize this, these are machines. Not so that we bought wrong machines, because even your own phone, when it is new, it can disturb you.
Right. You've
been having a Samsung or Techno, now you're going to iPhone. So these are machines. Sometimes, believe me, sometimes, and now there's a new feature, the iris. So we expect these people who have been trained, with the time, they'll be doing better. But in case there are those, a computer is a computer. And this one taking your thumbprint, capturing your iris, getting information. So where these could be, yes, humanness can come in. But the biggest challenge has always been us. We crown at the last moment, then we begin complaining. An extension, they are slow, but when you ask them for this period of 6 months, how many people have been reporting these areas, the numbers are low.
Right. Siraja still says there are a number of people who never got their IDs, and when they try to look for them, they are asked for money. So one would wonder, in this season of 6 to 10 months, won't there be people asking for money for simply renewing one's ID?
Well, renewal and registration of new entrants is totally free. Now, the problem with us Ugandans is we love shortcuts. I'm not putting myself out. We love shortcuts.
Right.
If you went to a NIRA office, because they have branches, and say, my name is Robert Chirabo Nyonyutono, I registered for my national ID. This is the paper I used. I was given this number. How far has my ID gone in terms of working on it for me to get it? I tell you, because I've seen this. They'll check in the system and they'll tell you your ID was printed. Go to where I registered or go to a district or something like that. You're going to pick your national ID. I know of a colleague, a friend of mine, who had registered for the national ID, was given a NIN number, and he wanted the ID after some time. I think sometimes we register because there is no urgent need. I think wanted a passport, so he needed it. Now, he was all over. Who can help me? Someone has asked for 400,000. I told him, no, let's do like this. Let's drive to NIRA office here in Kololo. When we reached there, he gave the number. They went in the system, no penny. They said, no, go to Entebbe. Your national ID is ready. He moved there. In the office, nothing was asked of him. He moved out with his national ID.
Great. Somebody here is asking for your number, Robert.
My number?
Please help me with the guest's number. on national ID. And
Actually,
well,
I'm not a guest.
Robert is a host.
I'm just a
the
person who researches and follows things properly.
Right, and good morning, Uganda. This is Katie from Gulu. I just want to inquire about renewing Lost. I did mine last year, November, but up to now, it's not yet out. How long does it take to come out?
Well, for a national ID, I won't give you a specific time because it depends on how much the baggage is there. But at least I must say that there's been so much improvement in
the lead time. Right.
But again, I'll go back. If you lost and put in a replacement, follow up. One, NIRA is very active on various platforms. I want to be very honest, on their website. But also move to an office of NIRA and ask, excuse me, I followed this process. I just need an update. If your national ID is ready as a replacement, if it is ready, they'll check in the system and they'll tell you it's ready, pick it here. If it isn't, still they'll tell you what you're supposed to do, but avoid middlemen. Go to Kololo. They have a very good office there. Go to Kololo, take your time. If it's saying today, I'm going to work on this thing called, that's what I usually do. Today, I must finish this. I put everything aside and finish that. So you have the right information.
Right.
Yes.
Good morning. This is Akelo Topista from Soroti. I want to inquire how much it can cost in case one wants to change certain things in his or her national ID. Please go to the website of NIRA. All the fee structures, legal fee structures, as to what you need are registered clearly on there. You need the right information, so make use of all the platforms availed for you. Thank you so much, Akelo, for being on the show. And quickly, before we run out of time, Robert, you mentioned that this exercise will start from parish level, where parishes will determine how many
district
villages.
and parishes. It's a district, but going to center. The heart is going to be the parishes,
Right,
because
right.
parishes is where I have the villages.
Yes, so indeed, I wanted you to elaborate more with clarity as to where one is supposed to go to be a part of this exercise.
Okay. Now, NIRA handled this exercise to the districts. Now, the districts are going to be coordinating with parishes, and the parishes are going to be doing this at selected villages.
Right.
Now, what you need to know, you can go to your parish and inquire when is the registration starting here, or when are they most likely to be in your village, because they are going to be rotating. In a parish, how many villages do you have? There's some number of villages, because they differ. Some parishes have so many villages depending on the population. So maybe they will tell you in Kamwanyi, we are there on this day. In Nkere, we are there for this week. In this, so that, but if you want to change particulars, then for you, you go to the district, because it's a district where they have put the experts who've already been doing this, that will guide you through, and also look at the documents you've presented, if they are the right ones for you to change your particulars.
Right. Thank you so much.
But don't forget this phrase, you have a name. Do you have a NIN?
Do you have a NIN? That is
so
such
every
very
Ugandan
profound.
must have a NIN from 0 to any age. Take your children to be registered, let them have a NIN.
Right.
This is very important.
Very true indeed. As we begin to bring this to a close, thank you so much, first and foremost, for being on the show. And with the questions and commentary coming through, I surely believe that we need to have an expert from NIRA to speak more detail and speak more life into this. But how, again, for clarity's sake, how will the registration be done as we bring this to a close?
Well, the registration is, they'll have desks as usual, so you simply move in. However, you can register online. When you go to their website, they'll show you the procedure for you who have smartphones and everything, and it will make it quicker. Because when you go to your website, you'll have already filled in all that is needed. They'll give you a number. So when you go to these places of registration, for you, you'll be fast. Now, for those that don't want to register online, there are going to be officials, NIRA staff, that will be at the parishes, at these villages, as they will be moving around. So you go there, ask for the information. Then when they capture it, you go, they take your eyelist. You go through the process as we used to. And within a short period, you'll be notified that your national ID is out and where you can pick it from.
Right. Now, I don't know, Robert, if you can speak into this, but somebody has a very pertinent question. Good morning, UBC. Thank you for the program. I'm Gideon from Moroto. I'd like to know if those whose IDs are to expire in 2027 will be allowed to renew theirs too.
No, you'll not be allowed, but when your national ID expires, you will simply go to NIRA and ask for a renewal. And if it is a renewal for the first time, you still pay nothing at all, no coin. You just fill in a form that my national ID, at that time it expires.
Right.
At that time, this is just the first bunch, because this 2014, 2015 is the first time we've had these IDs expire. Now, for you, at whatever period your national ID will expire, you just fill in and you get a replacement, a new ID at free of charge. A disclaimer, I'm not a staff of NIRA. I'm just
well researched.
Well researched. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show. Surely with what I'm seeing, the comments coming through and the questions coming through, we do indeed surely should host an expert from NIRA to speak more life into the conversation. But please endeavor to be a part of the exercise. Do not be that Ugandan who's left out on everything, yet the government emphasizes and sensitizes and puts out all the media push that there is possible for you to receive the information that you need. Up next is GMU Tourism Express. So there's a lot still in stock for you. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
You can now get all the chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Buza Commissioner, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887, and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
The government's mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport. If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, and once again, thank you for choosing UBC. My name is Zakia Laki, and we are on Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express. This morning, we are diving back into the discussion that is taking us straight to the International Museum Day. And Explore Chigezi is a part of it, which is just one day to the event. If you're still in Kampala, it's high time you start preparing to move and experience this one. In the previous discussion that we had with the commissioner, there was a comment that I would like to read from Mohanji Duncan on X, and it says, "Thank you, Zakia Laki, for the show. I'm watching live from Kigali, Rwanda, and I really find it impressive to reserve the museums for tomorrow by including the communities that have leads to the tourism sites all over the Pearl of Africa." Well, I'm with Mr. Nyagodeo this morning, who is the Tourism Development Officer at the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, and he's going to be helping us digest today's topic, which is celebrating International Museum Day in Chigezi, unlocking domestic tourism and heritage awareness. Good morning, Mr. Deo.
Thank you very much, Zakia, for having me. I really appreciate the invite, and the ministry thanks you for promoting tourism.
Thank you so much. The ministry is playing a very huge role in trying to, put all the regions out there. It has done a number of Explore campaigns. I've managed to be a part of those, and I'm one of those people that are looking forward to Explore Chigezi mostly. And I bet our audience that has managed to see this before is also excited. It's one of the very, very vibrant events in the tourism sector. For the young people especially. Yeah, it brings in promotion of domestic tourism, the nightlife. You'll find all of these. But we are going to be discussing all of this with Mr. Deo. Please say hello to the viewers.
Thank you very much, viewers, for tuning in. And we really appreciate the time you have given us. And we encourage you to engage with the tourism sector. It's one that is vibrant, it's one that is very profitable for business owners, and you're welcome.
Yes, there's been this question that many have wanted to understand. What has inspired the International Museums Day event to be hosted in Chigezi region?
Chigezi region is one of those areas that is rich in tourism diversity, right across the spectrum, from the wildlife product to the cultural product and the nightlife. So right now we have a Kabale Museum that is being refurbished and will be open to the public in its refurbished form with richer artifacts and exhibitions, and also part of promoting regional inclusivity. We encourage that tourism, as you are aware, is not just in one area, it's all over the country. So going to Chigezi, highlighting the rich cultural diversity in Chigezi, the rich wildlife in Chigezi region was a no-brainer. We had to show Ugandans what the region offers.
And like you said, it's rich in culture. But most people, when you talk about Chigezi, they think about the scenic views. That's mostly, true. And I think they're looking forward to that.
That's true.
So what are some of the heritage or tourism sites that are going to be spotlighted during the celebrations?
One of the, as I said, Chigezi is very rich in its cultural traditions and deep in historical traditions. But one of the sites that I would like to point out is the monument at Chisisi Falls. This is a place that has a story of both, that's rooted in culture, but also redemption. We know the story of Chisisi Hills is one of inequality in the past, where pregnant unmarried women would meet their death at the hands of their families. But it is also a site where new traditions, new cultures, new emerged to bring out a sense of redemption and growth. That is why the ministry took the time to have and to put up a monument to that area to tell the story of Kigezi region. And when you join us in Kigezi, you'll be able to see that monument and hear the stories from the local community. So we encourage you to be part of us.
And I think there is another similar place with the same kind of story at the lake.
Exactly. That is Punishment Island.
Yes. In
Lake Bunyonyi, one of the islands. These places, as I said, in the past, they were places of tears, places of death. But when you visit them today, it is a whole different story. For example, again, Chisisi Falls, there is a hospital right now, there is a school, and there's missionary work. It is an amazing experience, and I encourage everyone to join us and experience that story live.
When we talk about celebrations like this being hosted in different regions, how do they contribute to the growth of domestic tourism? Yes,
we all know that domestic tourism, the main role of domestic tourism is to highlight the lesser known attractions and also to encourage the local tourists to move out, because with the local tourism you have all year round revenue, you have all year round movement, which contributes greatly to the local economy as well as to the image of Uganda, because you can only sell what the locals are enjoying. So domestic tourism is important in the aspect that you highlight what you already have that most people don't know, but you also contribute to the growth of the local economy with all year-round revenues and business.
And you talked about the growth of the local economy. What are some of the activities that have been put in place towards the growth of local communities towards the event?
Towards, in particular, the International Museums Day, which will be on the 18th of May, starts right before the day. So we have from the 16th right to the 19th. That is almost four days celebrating the Museums Day. All of those days will involve travel to Kabale district, to Kabale, and engagement with the local businesses, the hotels, the restaurants, the nightlife. All that contributes to engagement, all that contributes to revenue, all that contributes to participation from the local community and from the various tourism stakeholders.
And when we go back to the young people without leaving them behind in activities like these ones, how have you managed to engage them to an event like this that is going to be happening in the region?
As you may be aware, as you are aware, Uganda is a very young country. Majority of our population is below 35, and they are very active. And as the president has been pointing out, being a young population is not a time bomb, but an opportunity. So International Museums Day has had various activities to engage the community. We've had school and cultural outreaches that have been going on. We've had training for local tourism guides in Kabale. We also have a sports gala on the 17th at Kabale University, whereby it's a football, tug of war and sprinting activity, and schools from the local universities and the local youth teams have been encouraged to be part of it. And we are excited, truly. Yes.
And are there any partnerships, for example, with let's say, tour operators that are going to help in the impact of this event?
Tourism, in its nature, is a business of people. So partnerships are very important to pull off some of these events. We have the partnerships that we have mainly with the site operators. We have the site operators in Lake Bunyonyi. Those are the owners of the boats. We have the local teams, the local sports teams that are participating in these in the sports gala. We have Kabale University that has been generous enough to offer the sports grounds and logistical support to make these things happen. We also have, of course, the local artists that will be part of this event on the 19th, and all of these are participating to highlight their businesses, but highlight also the region. Right.
When you talk about artists, I think it's another exciting one. Most people, when they're doing tourism, they tend to neglect the nightlife, which tends to stand out and make even these events more colorful. Engaging these artists coming in from those particular regions, entertaining them without taking them around their region. Yes.
That's true. Nightlife, Uganda has been trying to diversify the tourism product from the traditional wildlife. And one of the products that stands out, both for the domestic and international, is the events tourism, which is part of what we call the meetings, incentives, conferences, and events product. And this product is homegrown. It is resilient. We saw even during COVID, as soon as they opened the country, events bloomed. So this is one of those products that is important going forward for both the domestic tourism sector as well as the international sector. We saw Nyege Nyege, we saw other products, other events that are on the calendar every year.
Yes. Now, when we talk about the local museums in these regions, most people don't even know what is there. They've not even taken steps to visit them. So I'm wondering, what roles do they play, especially in promoting education and tourism, and for people to learn that there is need for them to be visited?
Yeah, thank you. Local museums, in their nature, apart from being areas where tourists can go to immerse themselves in the culture of the region, in the culture of the country, are also education and research centers. These are areas where most of our museums have research departments, and their responsibility is to document and record as well as display some of the physical history and the oral history of the region. So you will find that if you go to, for example, Kabale Museum, at the moment it's being refurbished and remodeled to have a more public appeal, to display more of the region's history, of the region's culture, of the region's appeal. So these areas offer a space to learn, a space to think about the past, and a space to imagine the future. Yes.
Yes, and I'm wondering also, what could the long-term vision be for regions like this that you've managed to visit in the domestic tourism promotion strategy?
Going forward, the long-term vision for domestic tourism across the region, we are looking to, first of all, increase revenue, but also increase the share that we get from domestic tourists. As I said, domestic tourism is resilient. It's all year round. And it also encourages community engagement. And these are all things that are important for local growth and for sustainability. So when you have these people coming, Ugandans themselves enjoy some of these products, they see the value in them. When someone from Kampala goes to Kabale, when someone from Kabale goes to Mbale, Elgon, Chidepo, they see the value of these sites and they can therefore maintain them and advocate personally for their growth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, now when we get to, you talked about Chisizi Falls, but what are these activities that this Ugandan watching you right now should look out for to be enticed to leave Kampala today and travel to Chigezi for this event?
I can assure you that the itinerary is packed with exciting activities. Apart from Chisizi Falls, we have a boat ride on Lake Bunyonyi. We have one thing that I find very attractive, it's the hiking. It's always physical. Zakia, you've been part of it. Physical, challenging, but rewarding at the end of the day. Apart from that, we have also the nightlife. As we said, we are highlighting these products, so you will experience the nightlife in Kabale with its music, its culture, and its people. So on the 18th, right after the International Museums Day, during the day, we'll go into experiencing Kabale nightlife. So please join us and be part of that.
Yes, the nightlife is going to have a number of artists that are going to entertain you. It's not going to be about just hiking and getting tired.
True.
Yes, let's have your closing remarks.
For the viewers, tourism is something that you should engage in as a business, as a path to employment, as well as a path to mental health. And Uganda is blessed. You can find all of those in our country. So I really encourage you to participate and be part of the tourism industry. Thank you.
Yes, you've just been encouraged to visit. Uganda is entirely beautiful. You don't have to first leave to find these things. Actually, you'll not even find them there. Well, it's been nice having you, Dale. Thank you for sharing this information and the insights with us. It's been Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express. Stick around and we are still coming in for the business segment with Julie Nantava.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear Chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling Chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887 and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, every story and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Welcome back from JMU Tourism Express. Time for JMU Business. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi. And as the dry season is coming up, farmers across the country are being advised to provide food supplements for their animals. Now, this move aims to ensure a consistent milk supply, which is vital for meeting the growing demand of processed dairy products. Unlike the rainy season, milk production during the dry spells typically drops by nearly half due to limited access to green pastures and water. This impacts the supply of milk, particularly in regions like the cattle dry corridor, where milk production is often significantly reduced. This situation is concerning for processors who rely on a steady milk supply. According to Jonan Tumusime, a quality controller at Lakeside Dairies, milk is their key raw material for producing a variety of products, including cheese, yogurt, and UHT milk. Statistics show that the Western region contributes about 46% of Uganda's total milk supply, but this figure drops drastically during dry spells. Dairy farmers are urged to take proactive steps now by planting fodder during the rainy season to ensure a consistent milk supply throughout the dry season. Now, moving on, the Institute of Internal Auditors Uganda is set to host its 19th annual conference in Kampala and Munyonyo, drawing auditors, stakeholders, and partners from across the country. Under the theme Strengthening Institutional Value through Internal Audit, the conference aims to advance professionalism, foster collaboration, and emphasize global relevance in the internal audit field. This conference will serve as a transformative platform to strengthen internal audit standards, promote knowledge sharing, and provide advanced training opportunities for our practitioners. So quoted. Now, Ruth Doreen Mutebe, Senior Vice President, IIA, Uganda, highlights the professionalism of internal auditing in Uganda, with auditors now collaborating closely with boards and management to safeguard institutional value. The 19th annual conference promises to be an essential event for strengthening the internal audit profession and ensuring its impact on good governance and institutional growth. Now, let's have a quick look at what is with the foreign exchange rates as of 14th May 2025. And by yesterday, the US dollar was opening at 3,654.91 buying and was selling at 3,664.91. It did drop by midday and by closing at 3,649.55 and selling at 3,659.55. The British pound was buying at 4,855.36 and selling at 4,868.66. The euro was buying at 4,082.75 and selling at 4,093.93. And the Kenyan shilling was at 28.23 and selling at 28.31. The Tanzanian shilling still at 1.35 and selling at 1.35. And the South African rand dropped value there with 199.19 at buying and selling at 199.73 as of yesterday, the 14th day of May 2025. Well, that's it from the business segment. Up next is the agenda, and we are talking matters financing the development of a country and the perspective of the youth on this matter, especially with the conversation of taxes. So stick around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Topic of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
You can now get all the chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887 and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
The government's commandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
I'm Kisame Andrew, cold chain technician. I attach to Kaliodis local government in the health department. The vaccines come when they're in the truck, which is refrigerated from NMS. I receive them, so I load these vaccines. There are some cold boxes put in those containers, then I take the facilities. Even in the facilities, there are fridges. We are so grateful, the government of Uganda, because each and every health center 3 and 4 in Kalio district has a refrigerator. Once they reach there, I offload them. I also put them in the fridges. These facilities have scheduled outreaches where they have to go to the community, to the villages, communities, and make sure that they vaccinate. So they also have small containers which are called vaccine carriers, which they put on their back, of course with some ice to maintain the temperature. So that when they mobilize, the community mobilizers, the VHTs, the LOC ones do mobilize the communities in gazetted outreaches which are already gazetted. They come and also workers find them, they do vaccinate them.
Ghetto structure okusooka ffe twali twepima nga ghetto structure tenabeerawo bali batugoba nga bintu si byakubeera nga tusobola okumiitinga mwe mwali temusobola na kutumiitinga batulaga bagenda tulondesa obukulembeze ne batulaga nti tulina okweteekateeka ne batulaga nti mu bayamba mulina okubeera ne sako era essaawa zino eno n'akasente tukayina mwe kali mu ofiisi tukakozesa ba beneficiaries abantu ab'omu ghetto wansi tuyanziza nnyo His Excellency the President of Uganda Brigadier General Damulira Nejaima Kuteesa House Controller anti-ghetto tumuyita anti-ghetto structure kati mulimu nze nagufuula mulimu office eno ghetto structure mulimu kati gwenkola sikyalina kyenkola kyonna banaye ba ghetto youth mwenna bakubiriza ghetto structure yazze n'emikono ebiri ebeere ng'etuyambako oba ng'etujjayo yonna gye tuli ng'etusapootinga mu buli kimu veeyo akasente mwe kali mu ofiisi ak'okwekulaakulanya mutuukire ofiisi ensonga zammwe zonna zigenda kukolebwako.
Nsooka okwebaza omukulembeze w'eggwanga okututeekateeka. Twali tetunnaba kuteekebwateekebwa, twafuna okusoomoozebwa nga kungi nnyo. Omuli okutukwata abasirikale, olumu nga tetulina na kitukoze. Kale nga n'akasente k'oba osonzeewo ggwe nga ggwe akagenda okukuyambako mu bizibu byo, nga weekanga okawadde abasirikale. Naye okuva ffe ghetto structure we yayimirirawo ebintu bingi byakyuka. Abaana baffe tebakyabakwata nnyo okuggyako abo abamenyi b'amateeka. Ne be bakutte nga babakwatidde mu ghetto ng'ekikwekweto kibadde kiyise. Nabo tulina omukisa ogugenda okubaggyayo. Abasirikale batuwulira. Abasirikale batuwulira. Toyinza kugenda ku poliisi n'ogamba DPC nti bakutte omwana wange ng'akumanyi nti oli komanda. N'atateekayo nnyo maanyi kukola ki? Kumujja. Ne neebaza bakama baffe General Damulira afande kuta nange tweyanziza nnyo mukozi ky'amaanyi bo bakoze ky'amaanyi nnyo teeka. Kuba bwe twamala okuyingira ghetto structure ne batuteekerawo n'essako ne certificate twazifuna. Kati bwe batteekerawo ssako eyo era muzeeyi n'amala n'atuukiriza kye yatugamba n'atuteekeramu ssente. Era kati eno essaawa gye tuliko tuwola abaana, tuwola ba ghetto youth ababadde balina bizinesi zaabwe naye nga zibulamu ebyokkola. Tugenda tubawa okutwaliza wamu katuli bulungi, tetuli era twebaliza ddala President Museveni okutukolera ekintu ekyo kuba mubugufu.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. In case you are just joining us, good morning to you. If you have been with us from the start of the show, Honorable Henry Musasizi, he stated that the extra 1 trillion was to finance the unfunded priorities that had been identified by Parliament. Now, Uganda being 75% populated by youth and making it one of the youngest nations in the world, it means that every decision that is about the budget affects the young person in Uganda and affects Uganda at large and with larger effect. Please keep in mind that part of financing the budget will come from domestic funding, and that means it speaks a lot into your pocket and my pocket, as well as almost every Uganda's pocket who pays tax on a daily, monthly, annually, and on and on and on. Now, the topic that we have today is financing our future, youth perspectives on the financial development of Uganda and the financial development agenda of Uganda. So the number is 0709-602-592, to which you can be a part of this conversation. Now in studio with me is Mr. Alan Muwangira Mohereza, and he is the team lead at the Youth for Tax Justice Network, here with us to have that conversation. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
How are you?
Fine.
Thank you so much for coming to UBC.
Thank you for the invitation and for having me.
It's an honor to have you to talk about pertinent issues such as this, and we'll start directly with this. Please briefly explain what the Financing for Development, that is the FFD, what it is all about and why it is very important for a youth in Uganda and one that's watching us right now.
Thank you very much. I've been introduced. I am Hereza Alan Muranja, the team leader at Youth for Tax Justice Network. We are a Pan-African youth organization that works around centering young people around conversations on how states or governments raise resources, how they allocate them through the budget processes, and how they utilize them for the benefit of young people. So we are based here in Uganda, but we do work across other African countries. And thank you very much for the question around the Financing for Development agenda. In about a few days from now, from the 30th of June to the 3rd of July this year, countries, Uganda inclusive, will be meeting in Seville, Spain, to discuss how they are going to raise resources to finance the development agenda. As you know, that for the past about 15 years, we've been having the Sustainable Development Goals. About 17 goals that countries committed to say by 2030 there are certain things that we will have gotten done with, or there are certain things that we'll have sorted out in terms of ending poverty, in terms of creating opportunities, in terms of how we plan our cities and urbanization. Quite a lot of things had been planned to have been done by 2030, and that's what we've been known, or what we've been calling the Sustainable Development Goals. However, and I think it comes out mainly in SDG 17, that as you're talking about ending poverty, as you're talking about having ending inequality, as you're talking about the environment and all these other things, you require resources to invest in solutions that will bring about that change that you need. And the Financing for Development agenda is all about that. How do we finance these goals that we want to achieve, and achieve them on time? As you know, we're in 2025. It's 5 years, about 5 years away from the target of 2030.
And that's a very short time.
Exactly. So the last sort of such meeting happened in 2015. And I think that's when
10 years back.
10 years ago, yes, and that was in Addis Ababa. And it was all about the same thing, that we've set ourselves some goals. How are we then going to raise resources, whether internally or externally or at a global level, to then be able to finance these goals? So the Financing for Development agenda basically is all about that. And what is going to happen, like I said, at the end of June, is that countries come and negotiate to say that this is where the money is, this is how we want to collect it or mobilize it, and this is how we are going to expend it, or we are going to use it for financing our development agenda. And I think For Uganda and other countries, I think that then you go into some of those negotiations from a point of either survival, from the point of dignity, or from the point of how then are we going to have those sort of resources that we may need to finance our development agenda. So basically, you can look at it as the engine room for the SDGs. When you're talking about the SDGs, the biggest elephant in the room is where are the resources going to come from? Where is the money going to come from? And I think once you have that conversation, then it becomes a little bit easier to say, if we're talking about ending poverty, then we know, okay, if we need, I think the global gap, the global need for financing SDGs annually is about $4 trillion US. So you can imagine that countries across the world need about $4 trillion US every year.
Each or all together?
All together, but
4 trillion.
Yes, yes, but the combined GDP of Africa is less than $4 trillion US at any given time. So those are quite vast needs. That is, it's quite a lot. And you talked about the budget, for example.
Yeah.
If you have a budget, and that is when we are bringing it back here at home in Uganda, when you have a budget of about 72 trillion and you can only almost just finance half of it. So it means that, one, there are resources that first you don't have from the word go. Yes. You have a budget of about 72 trillion, you can only collect about 34 trillion. So it means that you already have, you start at a deficit. But even the 34 trillion that you're going to collect, most of it you're going to pay back in debt. You already have like debt that you're paying. And then what is remain, usually nothing remains, because if you look at the estimates, we are going to pay about 37 trillion in debts this year. So it means even the 34 that you collect, you use it to pay debt, you still have. So the conversations and the negotiations, because this is the negotiations on how countries are going to raise resources and who is responsible for mobilizing them, whether as public finance, whether as private finance, whether as domestic public resources, when we talk about tax, when we talk about all those, and who is responsible for their utilization, and then how then do we monitor to say that if there have been commitments, for example. And why this conversation is important is Uganda right now is negotiating, and some of those negotiations and agreements that will happen will end up seeping into our national development plans, into our national budgets, into some of these documents that we use to plan and resource our agenda. So basically that's the financing for development agenda. At a global level, there are negotiations that happen once in a generation, and that's why for us we want to believe that the needs and wants and issues that were pertinent in 2015 may not necessarily
be relevant right now.
Be the issues that we want to have finances raised for and mobilized for. So that's why it's an opportunity that 10 years later, we also now meeting again. Countries are negotiating. You know, that's when countries will say, we are going to give this much in aid. That's when countries will say, we are going to provide this in terms of monies available for borrowing or lending. That's when countries will say, we are going to change our tax laws to make sure that some companies or some people pay more or some. So that's where all the global financial architecture actually is negotiated. And why this is important and relevant is because those rules that we negotiate and agree at that level, this is a UN meeting, there are UN negotiations, they most of the times end up within our local laws, within our local planning documents. And so that's why it's important that Ugandans, especially young people, take in note of what we are bargaining for and what we intend to achieve within these negotiations that are happening.
Right, away from the broader perspective from which you have painted and actually elaborated so profoundly, what does financing our future, that statement, what does it mean personally to you? Because I know someone will be relating on a personal level.
Yes. I think financing our future basically means that we are taking decisions today to mobilize resources and resources to be specifically put in sectors that are critical to youth development. And that's why I was saying that the needs and the challenges of 10 years ago in 2015 may not necessarily be the same needs because of the current situation or the current crises that countries and young people are facing on a day-to-day. I will tell you for a fact that there are some people that have never recovered from the COVID-19 crisis. That's for a fact. I will tell you that there are certain people that are still struggling with the effects of climate change, where the rains delay, where you have waste management, where you have different issues that at the bottom of it, you as a person or as a young person, you have no control over in terms of how the weather comes, in terms of how you plant and how you do some of these things. We know for a fact that today, the debt crisis that, of course, it's debatable. Some people say we are not yet in a crisis. Other people say we are already in it, right deep. But and
it will be worse seeing as there's a report, an IMF report that was released of African countries that are still in heavy debt and those that have no debt. And Uganda appears nowhere. So it's very easy for someone
to say we are not. But of course, those are, for you do look at it as a practical point of view. If you have a budget of 72 trillion, and almost 37 of it is just to pay debt and interest. That is almost coming to almost 40-something% of your national budget. The implication of that is that instead of putting money in sectors that are critical to youth development, you're using that money to pay debt. Now, what that means is that whenever you go to, I know when we used to be at campus, we used to almost strike after 2 weeks or what, there will be a strike about something. Either lecturers will be striking, we are not being paid, students or tuition has been increased, or non-teaching staff are striking, they've not been paid and all that. So that is a direct translation in how it affects, for example, young people. You go to a health center. Earlier, I think this weekend, we were somewhere where I was looking at a maternity ward, for example, and they didn't even have a BP, I think it's called BP machine. It's a machine of 90,000. And yet young people are coming in to have, health facilities and also. In terms of financing our future, it means that for some of the things that were relevant and urgent 15 years ago when countries were negotiating the financing for development outcome document, what we call the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, have drastically, I would say, changed in these 10 years. So we are talking about how do we reduce debt so that we can pay more for our social services. We are saying how do we raise resources so that we can adapt and respond to climate-induced challenges. We are saying how do we raise resources and help young people trade so that you respond to economic hardships that have been brought about when it comes to pandemics like COVID and all that. We are saying how do we engage young people more into their economy so that we lure them from issues around conflict and all that. So I think for us, for me personally, when we talk about financing our future, we are talking about sustainable ways in which we can find resources and allocate them for our needs right now, currently, our needs. Yes. And
do these needs also cover the future of those that we shall live?
Well, ideally, I'm talking about, because the current financing for development architecture was done in 2015, it has not been successful per se, because if it had, then when we go back to our scope of sustainable development goals, we will be saying, actually, for these goals, some of these we've achieved. I don't know if there are goals that Uganda, for example, can really say goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4 has been successfully achieved. All the targets that were put there have been achieved. And that is basically because there are no resources to do that. We are competing for resources for very many other things. And yet, if we looked internally, if we transformed the architecture, that's why I was saying that for FFD, it's not even about money, it's power. It's, when you are the one who holds the purse, when you go and negotiate and say, we are going to provide a certain percentage of our, I'll give an example. Countries, especially those in the global north, had committed 2%, what percentage of their GDP to, for example, foreign aid. Then what happened is that when the current president in the United States came and said, we're not going to give as much money we've been giving, for example, to NATO. What those countries that had committed that sort of finance, now we're looking at finance, to, let me say, other countries, Uganda inclusive, and what they said, they were like, okay, we need to cut some money. The first budgets they went to cut weren't about their internal budgets. No, they went to foreign aid. They went to the assistance. They said, and I think you've seen the statements, the Danish, the UK, which. So the question then would be, as we're negotiating, we are saying we have outflows of resources that are going to these places. We have global systems that don't allow us to tax multinationals as the way we would have ideally wanted to tax them.
Right, yeah.
We have systems that don't allow, for example, when it comes to climate finance, why would, for example, if we had a flood, let me say in Bududa, why would the money to recover be a loan, for example, and not a grant? Because this is a this is a climate catastrophe. I have nothing to do about it. But you realize that even if you went to get support or financing for such, to respond to such a thing, most of the times that would come in a form of debt, that would come in form of loan. So, so that is now where the conversation is. And why, for me, it's important is because Uganda is party to some of these commitments, and once they negotiate it at that level, chances are that it's going to end up being what is informing our targets in NDP4, informing our targets in our budgets, informing our, even the tax laws we make. When we bring out tax bills, you'll find that you're trying to respond to some of the things we've already agreed at an international level.
Right, and you did talk about, you know, having in mind an idea if there's goal 1, goal 2, and it brought me still sticking to the personal, the meaning of it personally.
Yes, yes.
Normally we are told that as you're planning at a personal level, you have to have SMART goals. Do you think this is applied at such a vast level? Was it applied 10 years ago? Should it be applied in the in the one that's coming on in June at the UN level, as Uganda is planning for the next 10 years?
Yes, yes. I think I would, let me take you back. Before the SDGs, we had the Millennium Development Goals. Now, I don't know, the jury is out there whether the Millennium Development Goals were actually achieved. But if you look at some of the reasons why, to a certain extent, they weren't achieved, was the issue of resources. Then, for some reason, we closed our eyes and said, no, let's not call them Millennium Development Goals. Let's call them Sustainable Development Goals. We got those sustainable
And that one is important, because by SMART, I mean, you know, the sustainable, are they measurable, are they attainable, reliable, that the time period we've set for ourselves, all of that.
So the assumption, I think, at that time was that, well, there are certain things we didn't get right with the Millennium Development Goals. We are going to get right with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's how we had that process in 2015. And, you know, okay, we have these goals. I think goal 17 is about partnerships for development. How do we raise resources? How do we enhance technologies, collaborations, all of those things. So there was something that I was saying that we missed this within the previous millennium, but let's work on this for now. But then, like I said, we are 5 years away from the target. So the question then would be, if we assessed and said, on whatever goal have we been able to achieve? And for countries like Uganda and other countries where we do work in, I think the answer mostly will not be a positive, will not be in the affirmative. And if you asked why, the chances are that the sole reason will be because we need resources, investments to be able to get these goals. And already there are now conversations and negotiations around the Pact for the Future. They're talking about, I don't know what now the outcome of these negotiations are going to be, but you see that they're already looking to the future without having to say the biggest question in the room is development finance. And I'll give an example. And they're all, the themes for this the negotiations are going to happen around 5 areas. Domestic resource mobilization, which usually includes taxation, which includes basically taxation and other, what you would call other non-tax revenues, administration around that. Then the second area is going to be around international public finance. Now, that's where you have aid, that's where you have debt, that's where you have. So as you think about it as countries are going to be negotiating around these issues. Then you have where you have private sector engagement. So this is where we are going to say that we need the private sector because we know there is a lot of money in the private sector. So that's where things like public-private partnerships are going to be discussed. That's where things like public investment, when you have private money. And of course, as for us, the idea is, do we have, private, it's usually called public money, private gain, but that is something that, but that's an area of negotiation. There's another area around trade. I think it's trade and I've forgotten the other thing, but it's basically saying, in terms of how we raise resources, do we also raise them through the trading that we do? Do we raise them also through some of that? And then I think lastly, I've forgotten the fifth one, but those are the 5 major broad areas. And if you look at them at a local level, that is basically what Ugandans should ideally be doing in terms of when we are talking about public. Let me start with domestic resource mobilization. When you're talking about, for example, taxation, we should, before we even go and negotiate that we want to tax multinationals more, we want to close loopholes that are brought about by illicit financial flows, all these other things. I think the first is that we come back and say, are our tax systems well aligned? Are they, have we improved them enough to get everyone, not to get everyone per se, but to make sure that everyone pays their fair share of tax, so that as you're negotiating then with other countries to say, you also don't make it easier for me to access, for example, information about a company. You will find that a company will come here in Uganda and declare a loss. Say, today we declare, this year we didn't make any profit.
You mentioned multinationals. In your perspective, do you think multinational cooperatives are actually taking away funds that should have been used to develop Uganda's youth?
Yes. Oh, definitely. And that's what we're saying, that if you look at some of the things that actually being renegotiated is how effectively do we tax some of these things. And I was giving an example that a company will come here in Uganda and say, our operations were not very successful, we made a loss for tax purposes, but they call it a loss. But when you go to their country where they are domiciled or where they are registered, they will declare a profit to their shareholders. So in their books, they will tell their shareholders, this year was so good that we made so much, we are going to give a dividend on our profits at a global level. And then the question then would be, how is it that in Ireland, in the UK, in Netherlands, wherever you're domiciled or wherever you're registered, you're declaring a profit to your shareholders, but in Uganda, where that money was made,
coming from,
you declared a loss. You said this year we didn't make profit, so Uganda cannot tax. Therefore, Uganda cannot get some of that money. So those are the conversations that now countries are having to say, if someone is declaring a profit to shareholders in Ireland, is there a possibility that URA, for example, can get that information and say, but some of these profits that you're declaring to your shareholders came from Uganda, so you have to pay some sort of taxes on it. So basically, at a local level, at a national level, I think those are issues that we need to take in interest in and then bring them out as we're negotiating with other countries for a better financed future.
Right, 0709602592. That is the WhatsApp number to which you can be a part of this conversation. And let's move on to the importance of young people being a part of conversations such as this. Should a young person out there care so much about tax justice?
Most definitely.
And altogether public financing, why should? Because most times you notice that conversations such as these are taken to be for those who are, older than us, those who are quite aged and more mature, who are called senior citizens. And you notice that at grassroots level, most young people are so lax when it comes to such pertinent conversations. Yet we are the very same people who will actually be out there complaining. So paint the importance of a young person being so interested in tax justice and public funding.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very easy question, and to answer one, yes, they should be interested.
Right.
For 2-3 reasons. One, that we are, this is, you're most likely going to be here longer than most people. So it means that if certain sectors are well financed, if certain sectors are well resourced, financed, and managed, then the chances are that you gain the most.
Right.
You benefit the most. And I will give an example that you see when, for example, we are building certain things like roads, we are adding electricity, we are doing all these things. Chances are that those are things that you're going to be using for the next 20, 30, 40 years. But the question then is how is it that you're not interested in how they are financed or how they are resourced? Because if we are saying we are going to build a road and we are going to borrow so much, then as a young person you say, but I'm going to use this road the most. Is it a road I need? Is it electricity I need? So your input and your participation at that point will be required.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you're here the longest. You suffer the consequences when governments cannot raise resources. When you're spending over 40% of your budget to pay debt and you're not having more resources to finance ICT, to put more money in tourism, you look at all the budget areas where they are being cut. It's interesting that every year the budget increases, but for certain sectors, every year their budget reduces. Why? Because they reduce so that they can pay debt, and yet these are sectors that are critical to young people. That's the first reason. The second reason is that eventually every young person will feel the government in their pockets. And at that point, it becomes a personal sort of issue. Before someone pays, for example, payee, they don't know how hurtful or how a toll it can take to work, and then you pay such high tariffs, or when you're importing something, or when you, but eventually, and we've started, because government at any given time has to raise resources, whether through taxation, whether through non-tax means, whether through trade, whether through debt. At any given time, government has to raise resources. So how it raises them then becomes of concern. If, for example, we say okay, let government borrow, for example, wherever it wants to borrow. You say, since it's not borrowing from me, since it's not taxing me, it's okay. And then you realize that almost all the money that you're collecting as a country, you're paying debt, and enough. You have to borrow more to pay more debt.
And yet when you go to the hospital, you
will need those services.
Yes.
I stay along somewhere in Kasangati, but I usually use the Nigeria route. Then you'll be like, I'm eating dust the entire year. Then you can't do ABCD. And all that is because you've not to say, if government is raising resources in these ways, how then do we contribute? And then lastly, I think young people, when it comes to revenue mobilization, it also gives a bit of agency when it comes to participation in the governance opportunities for a young person. I will tell you for a fact, if you've ever paid payee, you will be so keen on how government money is spent.
Definitely so, definitely so.
If you're an importer and you've paid that tax, you will be so keen on how. So it's the same thing that it then reawakens your
thinking, and
but also your need to participate in the development of your country. Then you say, okay, because we are raising this much, we should put it in this sector. Because we are raising this much, I don't think we need more money here, let's put it here. That is because you're now basically also in that loop. The challenge, or not the challenge, but maybe what has delayed that is most of our taxation has been a bit indirect. So instead of saying, let's take 30% of your salary, they will say, okay, let's just put some small excise duty. Every time you withdraw money from MTN, they take. Every time you go to the bank,
buy a chapati,
they take. Everything. So, but eventually, anyway, like I said, when people start feeling the government in their pockets, they then get to know that, okay, we have to, this is a collective responsibility for all of us. How does government raise resources? How does it allocate it through the budget processes? Because now those processes are ongoing. If you ask, for example, how many people have been before the budget committee, how many people interface with their budget committees at a local government level, how many people said, okay, this is not where we need money. We don't, maybe you're saying we don't need money for monitoring ABCD, we need money for, so that you also offer an alternative. So that you also say, the way I'm seeing things right now, our biggest challenges or our biggest opportunities are within the ICT sector. So ideally, the IC sector for a young person would make sense to finance other than a certain other sector. So you have that contribution. And I think if it's sustained engagement, I think government sometimes listens. Yes.
Very profound. 0709602592. That is the WhatsApp number to which you should engage. And somebody comes through and says, good morning, Uganda. I'm still Namai Sisiraji from Bale. Depending on that program, would have been good. The program would have been good, but again, the question is, how will that money reach out to the youths? The serious events occur in the urban areas, and the biggest fraction is left out in the rural areas. So the perspective of financing our future will be minimal if the government fails to lay out proper routes on how the youth will get that money, and that money is even low depending on the population pyramid of Uganda, where the youths are more than the old. What would you tell Siraje?
Again, participation, because most of this information is very public information, and also most of the planning, at least from what we've seen, starts from the local government.
Right.
So and it means that if you choose to say, okay, we are going then to participate, most of these processes start around September every year. Where government budget circular calls are put out to local governments, to ministries, to MDAs and all that. I think at that point, that's when Siraje and all other young people are supposed to say, okay, these are some of the things that we need to do, or these are some of the things that we need to put forward. And in some of those budget circular calls, there are even specific directions on how accounting officers should budget. They will tell them you have to give a certain percentage to, let me say, youth-related issues. They will tell them, because of the certain laws that we have around certain quotas for women, for youth, when it comes to mainstreaming certain things, gender, climate, these are always all in those budget circular papers. And maybe the challenge would be, how then do you access that information? Because, and the budget is ideally supposed to pass by end of May. But the planning, the consultations, and the engagement start as early as September of the previous year. So what that means is that that's where you start, so that you start at a local level, to your local governments. If it doesn't work, then you go to your line ministries. But so that, because at every other time, as accounting officers are preparing these budgets, they will be discussing what to put in, what not to put in.
Right.
Now imagine you had your proposal and people are sitting, they have about 10, 15 proposals. They tell them, this year we are most likely going to have about, let me say just 100 billion, but the proposals they have are about 300 billion. So the decision on which proposal to take and which item to include in that sort of proposal for funding for government would then require some level of engagement from the young person to say that we are here for us. We don't need more seminars. For us, we need more resources. For us, we need more education centers.
And allow me interject from there, so that you broaden the point. What practical steps can young people take to be a part of the decision making?
Right now, as you know, for example, we are entering into elective politics and positions. Right now, political parties are calling out all people that want to be, for example, involved in some of these participations, because there is a structure from the village upwards. In any given district, in any given municipality, in any given city, there is a structure where you start from, I think, village, ward, or parish, moving upward. Right now is an opportunity for young people, those that want to directly impact. That's an opportunity to say, okay, you participate in this process. By next year, January, I think we'll have some sort of leadership. And there is youth leadership at every level in our governance structure. That is the first point. The second point is that some of these things are actually, when you just, at a village level, but mainly at a parish level or sub-county level, most of this information, the planning, the what, happens at that level. And all you need to do, randomly, just one morning, walk to your parish headquarters, ask, where is this process? Where has it reached? There are people responsible for that. If you don't find them, that becomes an issue. Then you as a young person mobilize, say, we need to know. Because most of the times, actually, I think Ministry of Finance has some of those seminars or workshops, planning workshops with the local government people attending given at different intervals. And those are some of the meetings where young people should know and be in those meetings. Where local government people are justifying some of their budgets, you be in that meeting and say, but for us, in Bale City, we don't believe this is the priority for us, we believe, and you give reasons. And then, I was going to say logical, but if it's persuasive, but even if it's not, but for you feel like it's still a priority, then you mobilize. Because monetary decisions or economic decisions are made by political action. It's politicians that decide whether it's a local government level, whether it's within our parliament, whether it's within, it's those people that decide who gets what, when, and how. Right. So as a practical level, I think first we start with making sure that we participate in some of these processes. And like I said, they start as early as September. So at your sub-county, at your parish, at your ward, as early as September, you can ask, for example, have we received the, because I think they send out about 2 budget circular calls. Right. When the first one comes, you go, you ask, has it come? How do we contribute to this? How do we add or engage on this? And then you start from there, and then you can work upwards. And that's how you can then direct those resources to come to you, because you've participated in the process within which they are being allocated.
Right. We are talking about financing our future, and this is focusing on youth perspectives in financing for development, and that is the agenda, the development agenda in Uganda in particular. 0709 pardon me, 602-592. That is the WhatsApp number to which you can share your opinion. A lot to learn, a lot to take away. And as a youth, in case you have been folding your hands, it's about time you got up, because 75% is the population of Uganda in general, as of last year's population census. And Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. That means most of the major decisions are affecting you, right? Yes. Alan, what are your parting shots?
My parting shots, I think, will be about 3. One, that young people, especially here in Uganda, should take keen interest in how and what our government is negotiating when it comes to this financing for development agenda, or the next sort of financing, because decisions are being made today for us, the people of tomorrow. So it means that whatever consensus that will come out from Seville at the beginning of July is most likely going to affect or influence the way governments are going to raise resources for the next 10 years. So what that means is that we need to be keen on what we need our government to insist on when it comes to the taxing, for example, when it comes to ending illicit financial flows, when it comes to boosting local domestic resource mobilization, when it comes to how do we reform the debt architecture from, you know, very harsh loan conditions to more conditions that, you know, can be sustained. And because it's not fair that a government that is averagely 60 years and above is borrowing for 50, 40, 30 years without our input as young people. So all those, I think, our young people should take a keen interest. Like I said, this consensus is going to sort of influence the way governments will raise resources for the next 10 years. So that is something that young people should be keen on, and then take interest and offer. For us, what we are doing, we've made input into the outcome document for those negotiations. We'll still try and talk to our negotiators here in Uganda to see how do we make sure that, for example, climate finance, debt finance, tax revenue really works for young people.
You know, allow me just pause just for a second. Okay. You did talk about climate financing and debt financing, and a question just crossed my mind. How is tax justice linked to the funding of pertinent issues such as that?
You see, tax justice is basically saying pay your fair share of tax, the
Right.
keyword being fair, and that means for everyone. And
Right.
the link for all of this is, for example, one, if a multinational company does not pay its fair share of tax, that money will eventually have to be gotten from somewhere else. So if you lose that tax revenue, it means that you're going to borrow to fill that gap. If you had a disaster, for example, and you have competing interests, you know, you say, you would ask, where do we get, for example, money to rescue people in Chitezi when we also have money, when we also need money to put in maybe, let me say, the cancer ward in Mulago and all that. So the idea is that when you have everyone pay their fair share of tax, and the keyword being fair, including most especially multinational corporations,
yes.
high net worth individuals, because those are the people that have the capacity to evade, avoid, and corrupt their way out of paying tax. Then it has a direct impact on how much we borrow, because of course if we are raising enough using our tax revenue, there will be no need to borrow. Though borrowing on its own is not bad, but of course, how do you borrow, for what, and especially if you can raise these resources through taxation.
Right.
And I think the current research says that we lose about 2 trillion per year when it comes to, for example, harmful tax incentives, or incentives that people believe are not necessary for certain companies, certain multinationals, certain, but so that is money. If you can raise 2 trillion, why do you have to borrow 2 trillion? That's how it links to the debt. That's how it, so the idea is that taxation is the most sustainable way you can raise resources as a government to finance your development. The trick is, how do you make it fair? How do you make visible the results of that taxation? So that you don't have to, other countries, those that mainly, for example, have natural resources, oil, have cash crops, some of those diamonds, you know, like in countries like Botswana, for them, they may not tax their citizens more because they have natural resources they are selling to get money. So for those ones, they do it through trade. Others, basically, you either trade, or you're given, or you tax. So for a country like Uganda, I think we can do some trade. I think there are prospects around oil, there are prospects around what we've been doing with our natural resources, minerals that are required for fertilizers and all that. You can trade your way into revenue.
Right.
Sometimes it's very hard. As we've seen government parastatals, it's very hard to make money. But the most sustainable, I think, would be taxation, but fair taxation. So I think that's what I would say to that, that if we fail to raise revenue through taxation, then we have to borrow. Then when you borrow, other things come in.
Right. So
Yes.
you had 2 more parting shots.
Oh, yes. I was saying that we need to take in interest in the conversations that are happening at a global level. At a local level, we need to also, I know the budget cycle is long gone into the final stages for this year, but I think in terms of how those conversations affect us, I think starting next year, people like the one that asked the question from Bali should
Siraj
should start as early as September to say this is what we want to do, how we want to do it, and all, and then let us also participate in active governance.
Right.
Yes, this is the season.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you so much for coming on. We've been talking about financing our future, and in particular youth perspectives on the financing for the development agenda of Uganda. Thank you so much for being on the show. Alan will be back because this conversation is really broad and there's a lot to learn from it. For now, Ruben is coming up with JMU Sports. Good morning, Uganda.
Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.